All right, guys, so let's talk about some underrated or underappreciated diver watches. All right, guys, so all these watches are going to be part of a more prominent brand or say mainstream brand. I don't want to go into micro brands here because I think that of course deserves its own video, which I have done with an entire series. So if you haven't seen those, definitely check those out. But mainstream brands of watches that I don't think maybe get the amount of appreciation that they should, or maybe are overshadowed by another watch within the lineup of watches that make up that brand. But let's start us off here with Orient. So I want to be able to touch on all different price ranges here. And when you're thinking of best value for money at these earlier price ranges, Orient does it better than pretty much anybody. And the watch that we have here is the Komatsu. So when photos were first released of these watches, many assumed that they were a new generation of a Mako or a Orient Ray. However, we eventually learned that that was not the case, and these were completely independent releases from Orient. They released this model as well as the Kano. However, I think I prefer the Komatsu a bit more. The watch comes with 7 different reference variations, and they all greatly resemble that of the Orient Mako USAs, ones that I am a big fan of, but with slight changes in the indices and the dial colors. These watches come with a price range of $240 to $330 at retail. Depends on the reference that you go for. You can also go for this kind of two-tone style one that will then get on the higher end of the price tier. Really cool textured dial as well. 41.8 millimeters here for the case size. Thickness 12.8 millimeters. Movement is an automatic F6922, so a standard player that we see in a lot of Orient diver watches. Water resistance of 200 meters, and you get that sapphire crystal. Now, when somebody thinks of Certina, there's probably a few watches that come to mind, but one that always comes to mind for me is the DS Action Diver. It's an ISO certified diver coming in at a very reasonable price and has an 80-hour power reserve with some nice, simple styling and a few options to choose from. A lot to like, but today we are looking at a Certina Heritage line, a diver from there with their DS PH 200 meters. A watch released at Baselworld 2018 and takes up a spot in Certina's Heritage collection. The DS stands for double security, hinting at the rubber seal inside the case, and was first initiated in their line of watches in the late 50s, throughout the 60s, and the early 70s. And this watch aims to embody a lot of those vintage styling traits with this current form. The watch comes with a price at retail of $780, case size of 42.8 millimeters, thickness of 14.4 millimeters. Movement is a Powermatic 80, so you're getting that 80-hour power reserve in here as well. Water resistance of 200 meters. It has a Hezolite crystal to kind of go in line with that Heritage collection. Now, have you ever liked a watch, but you just can't make it happen for yourself just because maybe the case size of the watch doesn't fit either your small wrist, or if you have a big wrist, it's maybe too small? That's basically the story of my life with most of the Seiko divers. I would love to be able to have one and just wear it regularly as kind of that watch I can just slap on and not have to worry about, but a lot of them are too large. And this watch from Seiko I think is the perfect representation of a watch from a design standpoint and a spec standpoint that I really like, but I can't make happen. But I still want to mention here today because I think it's overlooked greatly when looking at the complete lineup of Seiko divers. And the watch is the Seiko SPP 079J1. So again, this watch falls in a unique category as many of the Seiko divers we think are usually from the SKX line, featuring that 7S26 movement, or many of the Turtles and Samurais featuring usually the 4R35 and 36 movements. However, I think this is a watch that falls really nice between a lot of these Prospect lines and maybe in the lower end, and these SKXs of course, and then also kind of segueing into maybe the Marine Masters and the Grand Seikos of the world. But this watch comes in with a price of $850 at retail, case size of 44 millimeters, thickness of 13.1 millimeters. Movement is an automatic Seiko 6R15, a movement I have a lot of experience with. You're going to also get an upped power reserve there of 50 hours, and I've always found they've run much more accurate than what Seiko is saying out of the box. Water resistance of 200 meters, and has a sapphire crystal. So the combination of that blue bezel with the black dial, I think just looks great. And I don't know what it is, because generally I don't really like that mix in everyday style, but for watches, I think the look works, and it certainly does with this Seiko watch. So back in the early 1950s, we saw the release of 2 of the most iconic diver watches of all time, with the Blancpain 50 Fathoms and of course the Rolex Submariner, and really have overshadowed pretty much all other diver releases, at least at that time. But probably the biggest casualty of these 2 releases was the Zodiac Seawolf, a watch that has been beloved and worn on many military professionals in combat, as well as being a watch that has bared the wrist of many watch enthusiasts over the years. And the watch in recent years has fallen off a cliff a bit in terms of popularity. However, with Zodiac having a nice 2019 Baselworld with the release of their GMT Aerospace, I think we might be seeing a little bit more attention being drawn the way of the brand, which I hope can be directed because I think the Zodiac Seawolf, as well as many of their other watches, are pretty cool vintage-inspired watches. But looking at the Zodiac Super Seawolf, looking at the reference Z09207, the watch comes with a price of $1,095. Case size of 40 millimeters, lug to lug, we're looking at about 47 millimeters. Case thickness 13 millimeters, powered by an automatic STP 313. So STP developed by the Fossil Group as an alternative to ETA movements when ETA was threatening to pull a lot of their third-party supportive movements out of the market a few years back. And I think this particular look with the triangular indices is what I mostly associate with the Seawolf line, and I think this is a very good representation of kind of encapsulating that heritage from the brand. But now before we proceed any further, a big thank you to our sponsor for making this possible, as well as helping put food on the table for myself and Courtney.
Help.
So Skillshare is an online learning community with over 25,000 classes that you can take advantage of, and they're giving you guys a hookup today that if you use the link in the description and follow those instructions, you can get 2 free months of Skillshare. I'm currently taking a class, actually just finished up one class, I'm gonna start another one. Finish up a public speaking class because I was actually just back at my alma mater this past week. One of my favorite just authors has a course in there, Simon Sinek. If you haven't read his books and also taken his class on Skillshare, definitely recommend it. And also doing a class on email marketing with e-commerce now with the store growing a little bit more. Want to be a little bit more educated in that area. But again, if you click that link in the description, you get unlimited premium access. You can join 7 million other creators on the platform that are using Skillshare. And it is a great tool. And even after the subscription goes up, you want to give it a shot. It's only $10 a month to keep the thing going. And you know what? If you invest in yourself with classes like this, that means you increase your value. When you increase your value, you make more money. And when you make more money, you can get more watches. That's my logic with all this. But thank you again to Skillshare, and check out the link in the description. First 500 that use that link can get that free first 2 months. So when you think of Zen watches, I think of just over-manufactured tool watches. And the diver that we have from them is one that I don't see mentioned very frequently. It's a funky one, but it stays true to those Zen kind of design and construction roots. And the watch is the Zen EZM3. So these watches come with a price range of $1,800 to $2,100, case size of 41 millimeters, thickness of 12.3 millimeters, movement is an automatic ETA 28242, water resistance of 500 meters, and has a sapphire crystal. The AR on the dial stands for air dehumidifying technology, which really just means prevention of fogging on the dial, even the most extreme conditions. Another thing that you might notice here, the 9 o'clock crown, which is kind of funky. And I think this is a really good embodiment of what Zen is all about. And a watch that I don't see mentioned that frequently. I think we hear about the U1 a lot. Of course, we hear about the Zen 104 and a lot of their pilot-oriented watches. But this is one I think many people should take a look at. Okay, so now for this next brand, I hold them in essentially the same category as, say, like a Zodiac. Brand with a good amount of history, had very notable releases in the past, but maybe have fallen off a little bit, but are still doing some interesting things to keep the brand alive. And the brand here is Doxa. And the watch we're going to be looking at is the Doxa Sub 1200T. So back in 1967, Doxa released their first sub, and followed up in 1969 releasing the first helium release valve equipped dive watch for sale, the Doxa Sub 300 Conquistador. The watches were a big hit at the time, and now I think many people tie these watches as a visual representation of the brand. I know I do with that funky orange dial. But knowing this, back in 2010, Doxa paid tribute to this 1969 release with the Doxa Sub 1200T. And this watch comes in with a price of $1,900, case size of 42.7 millimeters, thickness is 14.4 millimeters. The watch is compact though, 44.5 millimeters lug to lug. Movement is an automatic ETA 28242, water resistance of 1200 meters, and has a sapphire crystal. The watch comes on a beads of rice bracelet, which I always kind of like. But these are one of these watches you either know it's for you or you know it's not for you. I know it's not for me, as you guys would probably guess, but I can appreciate just this watch's history, and I can appreciate also somebody liking this particular design, because it is unique. It is unique, and maybe you don't want to go for this particular model, you want something a little bit more tame. They also have a blue, like a deep blue version. It's called the Caribbean, which you can also take a look at. Very similar specs, and maybe a more tame package if that's what you're going for. So now for these next two watches, they unfortunately fall victim to having a more popular watch be associated with them quite regularly. And the first one is from Longines. And when you think of Longines and you think of the Heritage line, there's a lot of different watches that you will think of. When you're thinking of diver watches from this particular line, you probably think of the Legend Diver. And as a result, I feel that this 2018 Basel release hasn't managed to get a taste of the limelight yet with the Longines Skin Diver. The watch comes in with a price at retail of $2,600, case size of 42 millimeters, movement is an automatic L61988, an ETA-based movement, water resistance of 300 meters, and has a sapphire crystal. The watch comes with really cool faux patina that pairs well with Longines' retro-looking logo, and then with the blackish gray speckled dial, all which nicely embodies the vintage skin divers from the late 50s and early 60s. The one unfortunate reality about this watch is the fact that it is going to wear rather large 42 millimeter case, but 52 millimeters lug to lug, and has really long lugs at that. Would love to see Longines go the route that they did for the Legend Diver and offer up some different size variations to match maybe different wrists. All right, so now for our last watch. I don't know if you can necessarily say it's underrated when you look at the entire landscape of the watch industry, but when you really focus in on Tudor and you focus in on their diver-oriented watches, you think the Black Bay. And I think the unfortunate reality is that this watch is a casualty of just the Black Bay's success. And the watch I'm talking about is the Tudor Pelagos. So honestly, I think the Tudor Pelagos is probably one of the most compelling offers in the entire watch market today, what you're getting for the money. So in terms of price, we're looking at $3,500 to $4,400. Case size of 42 millimeters, thickness of 14 millimeters. Movement is an automatic in-house MT5612, water resistance of 500 meters, has a sapphire crystal, and comes with that titanium case. But when you combine this in-house caliber, titanium case, these cool matte dials, I think this is a watch that is very distinctive, and you can certainly make the case that this is one of the best deals on the market today for a tool-rich dive watch. And I find a lot of parallels with this watch and its relationship to the Black Bay that the Deep Sea has with the relationship with the Submariner. But I just think that this watch brings a lot to the table, very reasonable price, and I think it's a great starter watch. Even with that titanium case, I mean, this thing, whenever I've been able to wear it, it was too big for my wrist, which I'll get on that in a moment, but it wears very light, and it doesn't have the feel on the wrist as it maybe would through photos and how it would maybe look very utilitarian and maybe a little bit bulky. But I was hoping for it at Baselworld this past year, looking for some maybe smaller options available for the Tudor Pelagos. I'm hoping for it. I hope Tudor is able to deliver in the future. All right, guys, so I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Also, head over to our watch strap store. I'm trying to become the largest online retailer for watch straps in the world. We added a ton of inventory, have new shipments coming in. I really want to make that a priority, and any purchase there supports the channel. It's a huge help, probably the best way to support the content and to keep this, what we're doing here, going forward. Also, if you want to buy a watch, I partnered up with Bob's Watches, as many of you know, one of the largest online retailers for watches in the world. And if you use the link in the description, any purchase also supports the content that you're watching. And whenever you buy a watch there, of course, you're going to get an authentic watch from one of the most trusted names in the industry. And finally, if you want to join our watch giveaway, fill out the watch giveaway form and follow me on Instagram. And just follow me on Instagram in general, because I'm going to be doing a little more live streams on there, engaging a little bit more, and also doing some giveaways, but of course, watch straps and any other things that kind of come to mind. So definitely be following me there. So guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.